and welcome to Designer by Designer, ILD's new series of one-on-one interviews with and by lighting designers around the world. My name is Nick Dewey, Associate ILD, and I am the ILD PNW Co-Coordinator, and I'm joined by Yali To, the Coordinator from Southeast Asia. Together, we are excited to welcome you to the 8th interview in this series with CJ Brockway, ILD, and Chayot Kiranantawat, Associate ILD, CLD. Before we begin, we would like to thank our sponsors. The Designer by Designer series is made possible through the generous support of our platinum level sponsors, Axis Lighting, Cooper Lighting, Lutron Electronics, Lumen Pulse, our gold level sponsors, including Lumini, and our silver level sponsors. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce CJ Brockway and Chayot Kiranantawat for the 8th interview of ILD's Designer by Designer.
Hello. Hello, Chayot.
Hi, CJ. Good
Hi.
evening. Good morning from Singapore.
Good afternoon from Seattle.
All right.
It's so nice to have a chance to chat with you today.
Yeah, likewise. How are you?
Good. What's the weather like where you are?
I think it's good. It's not too hot and not too cold. Yeah.
I can understand that your background is at your real office, but it's not the right time of day. So, but it's your real office. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
It
I
looks
took
like
the photo from my office.
Well, so in Singapore right now, is it springtime? No. Yes.
I guess it's summer. I'm not sure because the weather seems to be the same all the year. Yeah.
Does that influence your design?
Yes, I think pretty much.
Aha. I'm interested to speak more about that. So I guess I was going to ask some of the warm-up questions, but one of them was going to be summer or winter.
I would choose winter actually because I have been living in hot places all my life.
I understand that you're from Bangkok, Thailand originally. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. So actually Bangkok is very hot. So it's a bit cooler here in Singapore because there are a lot of trees. So I think it's quite nice to be here also. Yeah.
Where else have you had the opportunity to live and work?
Before moving here in Singapore in 2019, I was working in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. So that was another great experience as well because I had the chance to live in a place where the environment is completely different from where I used to live in Bangkok. So it was quite eye-opening.
Yeah, I'll bet. And probably culturally too.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. That's such an interesting place to have ended up going to work. What was your path? How did you get there? Where did you start?
Oh, okay. So originally, I was born and raised in Bangkok, and then I continued my study in architecture. After my graduation, I continued working as an architect for over 4 years before I realized that it might not be my passion. So I decided to jump out and started my new career as a lighting designer in Bangkok, and then at one point, I feel that I will need more experience exposing to new culture or new kind of projects to be designed. So I decided to move to Dubai, and then now I'm here in Singapore.
Yeah. And did you have an opportunity to work on some amazing projects in Dubai?
Yeah, there are a few. I had the chance to work on some massive projects like a huge development or some kind of the biggest office building or something like that. And also I had a chance to work in a project where lead and sustainability are required. So that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
So I wonder, how do you find working in Seattle?
Very small comparatively, but lots of sustainability focus, and it's important to be energy efficient. Is that true in Singapore as well?
Yes, that's true also. But the scales of the projects here in Singapore are quite small. But the good thing is that we have a chance to really go deep to detail design, which I find it quite fun as well.
Mm. I was noticing that you won an amazing award for a project that you worked on recently. In fact, if you go, if anyone feels so inclined, glintlightingdesign.com has a terrific website with your work displayed and some of the awards that you've won. Can you tell us? I'm really curious. One of the projects that you won was the Changchun Tang Sales Gallery in Chongqing, China, correct?
Yes, correct.
I'm curious to know more about that project. It looks like it was a project about, speaking of sustainability, about smart living and using light. Like specifically, that project was targeted for light. Uh, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, actually, that project was a sales gallery in China, as you mentioned. So we are humbled and proud to receive a few awards with that project last year. So it was including an IALD Award of Merit as well. So the project basically speaks about the futuristic and high-tech living. Inside the sales gallery, there are, for example, a robot that works as a barista, or yeah, it's quite fun, quite interesting. And the vision of the interior design was to create a clean and minimal environment with a wide interior palette. So our lighting design approach was to amplify that. So we tended to use clean white light at the color temperature of 4000 K for the graphic lights, like line of lights and the barisal lighting on the ceiling, or linear lighting detail to delineate the walls and the floor of the sales gallery. In the meantime, because we want to maintain the feel of a residential space, so for the general lighting, we still use warm white of 3500 K to make it a warm and inviting environment. And actually, it was a quite interesting project because we had a big challenge working on it during the pandemic. So the challenge was that we were not able to go to the site to see the progress of the project, or we cannot even go to focus the light or do the scene setting there. So fortunately, because we were working with a very helpful lighting supplier in China, they helped us to do all that thing. So we just sent them instructions, and they were willing to help us to focus and to tune the scene setting of the light, and they sent us back the report. So that's why we can achieve a nice work, even though we were not allowed to travel there physically.
Wow, that's impressive. The project looks phenomenal, definitely clean, very limited in terms of visual clutter. I'm impressed by how integrated everything seems, and also was fascinated by the use of color temperature with that contrast between cool white and slightly warmer light. Do you feel that uh, the people who go to this sales gallery learn about lighting as part of the process of visiting the gallery?
Uh, Definitely, I think yes, because we try to make lighting to be seamless with the interior design.
Mhm.
Also, there is another concern that we made because the sales gallery operates mostly during daytime. So we concerned about the contrast ratio between the interior lighting and the national daylight that comes in as well. So we tried our best to balance the brightness inside and the outside. And also we use dimming in conjunction with lighting control system to in order to set some scenes like daylight scene and night scene to calibrate the interior lighting in proportion of the daylight that coming in during the day and night as well.
Mhm. It looks like you've worked on some other projects as well that use luminous elements that you can see through exterior glazing or have a sense of depth. Um, talk to me a little more about your use of contrast relative to making an engaging design.
Yes, so normally we try to balance the setting between the interior lighting and the exterior lighting, especially for the projects with a lot of glass facade. But at the same time, we try to create interest as well. For example, one of our projects, we were using warm white in the interior design and a little bit cooler white for the facade lighting so that when you see from the outside, you can see the contrast between the inside and the outside. And at the same time, it looks seamless because the light from the interior seeps out to the exterior spaces as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You also mentioned on your website about using bespoke lighting solutions. I'm really curious about that in particular. Um, so does that mean that you have custom products or things that are made just for that specific project by manufacturers?
Yeah, actually, we are not the supplier or manufacturer, but the meaning of the bespoke design is that sometimes we, for example, if the interior designer has a vision to make use of some FF&E lighting, and they will need of the customization, we will help them to maybe suggest about the suitable color temperature or suitable light source in order to achieve a good lighting performance from that fixture. And usually we will help them to review the shop drawings from the manufacturer as well in
Mhm.
order to make sure that everything goes well and the best can be achieved. So
Right.
I'm just curious, how about you? Do you have any chance to work on any bespoke customized fixture?
I think so, yes. Oftentimes we're working with manufacturers who will build lighting elements from the ground up. We'll start from scratch. Um, Unfortunately, sometimes we're told that can cost too much money. Or interestingly, we'll be told that we can have something, but it will be coming from China. And in fact, there are manufacturers from China who are able to create these creative things that we write down on a napkin. But just makes me curious if designing in Singapore, if you have better access to locally manufactured products.
Yeah, I think in Singapore here we have a lot of suppliers or manufacturers that can help us with the customized fixture as well. So we have worked with a few of them, and in my past project, we had a chance to work on a residential project with the interior designer want to have like a ring pendant above a bar counter. And then as a lighting designer, we suggested them to integrate a small downlight inside it as well in order to highlight the counter below it, because the client was thinking to put a little sculpture there. So along the process of that project, we also helped the interior designer to communicate with the supplier to discuss with them how to integrate a little zoomable downlight on the pendant in order to give a little bit of the accent to the sculpture.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. And they could find a way to add an additional wiring for it within the existing pendant.
Yes, actually the whole pendant was customized by the supplier.
Yeah. Wow. That's honestly, I think it's really fun to be able to create something from scratch. And it looks like the projects that I see you've worked on, they really reveal a level of refinement and detail that looks like it's taken a lot of time and effort. Can you speak to a little bit about the process of working with the design team? Are you normally working with architects? Are you working with the end users? Are you documenting everything? What's your process like?
So essentially, here in Print Lighting Design, we are part of a bigger design collective composed of an architect's firm, an interior, and also an experience and branding design team.
Mhm.
So most of the project, we are working closely together with them. We usually liaise with them from the beginning of the project, if possible, in order to craft a seamless lighting design approach. And then along the way, we develop the design together with them. And of course, we are open and we also work with other architects and interior designers as well. And for some specific project, we even have to work with artists or yeah, also the contractors and the client as well. So how about your projects in Seattle? Do you usually work with a wide range of users and designers there?
Yeah, I think it sounds very similar. I mean, I think that the model you're describing where you have a bit of a collective, that sounds unique, like not something that everybody gets to, at least where I am, experience, but it sounds very collaborative. Do you, in this, during the pandemic, have you been collaborating with people virtually or meeting in person?
We are doing mix both virtually and in person, but I think because recently our office was they have the policy to let the staff working at the office for maybe 3 days a week and working from home 2 days. And now we are working 4 days a week at the office. And on Friday, like today, I'm working at home. So I think it is nice as well to have some time working at home so that you can avoid the traffic jam, you can save a lot of time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you can,
personally, I still prefer working in person.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I miss my pets too much if I go into the office.
How about you bring your pet to the office?
Yeah, cats are a
as
little
well?
harder to transport. Well, so I also have come to understand that you are CLD certified.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, why did you decide to get your CLD? Why?
Okay, because I feel that after I have been working as a lighting designer for a while, I feel that I would like to have some standard or some proof that can guarantee that I'm really a lighting designer who already experienced enough in some extent. So I think CLD is a nice platform because it is like basically it is the world first evidence-based certification for lighting designers, and I find it is not easy to achieve, but it is not impossible as well, as long as you have enough experience and sufficient projects to exhibit that you have actually achieved the seven domains of practice. So that's why I decided to try. Yeah.
And do clients value that they see that you have a CLD? Is it important, do you think? Or do you expect that it will be important?
Yes, actually, we try to promote it as well. We try to make it known to the public about what CLD is and what the important it is. So I hope the client will understand as well slowly. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there very many lighting designers in Singapore?
Who got the CLD?
Well, just in general, are there very many
Oh,
lighting designers?
okay. I assume there are about maybe 50 plus or more than that.
Okay, that's actually quite a few. I mean, it's I'm sure, how many architects are there in Singapore? Many more.
Yeah, probably more. How
Yeah.
about in Seattle? How do you find working in Seattle, and how is the lighting community there?
We have a terrific lighting community. I think I'm going to guess there are probably 200, close to 150 lighting designers, maybe uh, maybe more. Seattle's got a nice group of lighting designers, similar to Chicago and New York City, and um, uh, but I don't know how relevant the CLD is yet for us. I think we have to decide we've got to do it if we're going to do it. But I think it's coming along, and I haven't committed yet, so I'll probably get slapped for that yet. But if you don't mind, I think I'd like to know if you think there are any specifically important or hot topics in the lighting industry right now.
Mm, I think what I came across a lot recently was about sustainability and also about how we as lighting designers can reduce light pollution and maintain the dark sky back again. So I think last month was the week of the dark sky as well. So I saw this topic coming a lot. So I think it's also an interesting topic because as lighting designers, we try to create beautiful things, but at the same time, we also have responsibility to save our environment and our planet as well. So how about you? How do you think about this topic?
Oh, I think it's very important. Completely agree with you. And it's interesting, again, thinking about uh, the relatively few numbers of lighting designers that we are. There are a lot of people who are working in municipal capacity to do street lighting. And when it comes to dark skies and thinking about the impact that we have relative to those sorts of sustainability measures at night or dark skies, there are a lot of people who are probably doing lighting that aren't necessarily lighting designers. And that's
Exactly.
makes me wonder. I had a lighting design colleague, Jeff Miller, who was really encouraging me to attend the street and area lighting conference at one point in time. And do you find that there's any interest in trying to improve the municipal or infrastructural lighting in Singapore?
Yeah, I think it would be great because like I have a direct experience in when I was in Dubai. Me and my friend decided to go to the middle of the desert to do a stargazing, and then we were highly expecting that we will see the sky and maybe the Milky Way. But unfortunately, at that specific night, the sky was totally polluted, even in the middle of the desert. So we were disappointed and we had to go home without seeing any stars, any Milky Way. So I think it's quite crucial to promote this specific topic to get it happen to, yeah, so that we can see a beautiful sky again maybe.
Yeah. Well, and to
Yeah.
save some energy, if you don't need the lights on, well, it's interesting the way our eyes work relative to needing maybe higher light levels at around twilight and then lower light levels as the night progresses. Do you think that, well, actually, in Singapore, are there street lights that dim now?
I'm not quite sure, but I think it will be great that the street light can be dim because actually we don't need that much level of brightness for
Mhm.
example in the middle of the night where when no people is around. I think it's good to dim the street lighting in order to not only for the dark sky but also for the sustainability and saving of the energy as well.
Mhm. Yeah, if we don't need it, don't spend it, right?
Yeah, true.
Um, I was just thinking of other sustainability oriented topics. We talk a lot about the carbon footprint of the lighting products that we specify cradle to cradle. Like what's the attitude in Singapore?
Mm.
Is there a desire to put light fixtures on jobs that you know that you can recycle at end of life or maintain, or is that still just buy whatever's cheapest?
Actually, for example, what I'm trying to do at Green Lighting Design is basically to use high performance lighting equipment that consume a few less energy and give out a little bit more lumen output. So that's the basic thing. And also, I think one of the previous project that we did, it was another pop-up sales gallery that they will actually use the building there for around 2 years, and they will maybe dismantle it and move it to another place.
Huh.
So I think it's another interesting concept to be to use the like the material or building equipment that can be recycled and reused again in another place.
Mhm.
So in order to respond to that concept, we try to use the light fittings that are like plug and play. So after
Plug
they
and
finish,
play. Mhm.
yeah, after they finish using the building at that location, they will move to another project and they will also reuse the light fitting as well. So that's one of the concepts that I think can be possible.
That's great. I mean,
What's your
that's
thought
really
about this?
progressive. Sorry?
What's your thoughts about this?
I think that's terrific. The ability to reuse lighting is something that um, some colleagues and I were really hoping that eventually we would have a better, stronger reuse market for light fixtures. I mean, when you think about the number of, let's just say, office spaces that are built, and then in less than 10 years, sometimes much less than 10 years, people don't stay at the same office. So what happens to the lighting that was installed that's still perfectly suitable and maybe has another 20 years of life left? What's the market for resale? And is there a way to make or encourage people to appreciate the fact that they're buying something and giving it new life?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's important to think more about it.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of some like movies where you have the, oh, I don't know, the movie Delicatessen comes to mind. It's kind of a apocalyptic movie where you have people who are making things out of scraps, and
Right.
and I think that's charming. I don't know that most people would want to use things that are old, but do you have any favorite design movies?
Uh,
Sorry to
Not
put you on the
really.
spot.
I don't have any idea now.
That's okay. But I do know that I've heard that you like to draw, to sketch.
Right.
Did
Yeah,
you
so
always?
sorry.
Did you always like to draw and sketch as a child?
Yeah, since I was a kid, I always have a sketchbook with me, and I just like to scribble anything on it. And as I grew up, I ended up studying in the Faculty of Architecture. So drawing and sketching is kind of like part of my study. So it's something that I had to do every day. So I had to develop the skill on sketching. And after that, after a while, I began to like to travel around the world. I traveled a lot, and usually I will bring a small sketchbook with me. And whenever I saw anything interesting, I tend to sketch. And yeah, that's part of the memories that I can have in my sketchbook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably fun to look at. Do you use a pen or pencil, or what do you sketch with?
Yeah, actually, I can use anything, but
Anything?
yeah, but my favorite is, of course, paper and pencil or pen, because I grew up in the age that there was no iPad, there was no any other thing to use. So that's my favorite. I also like the feeling when I use the pencil to draw on the paper, and there is a kind of pleasant texture that you can feel on the paper that you cannot find it on iPad or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I also watched your session last time on designer by designer. So you mentioned that you like to sketch as well.
I do. I'm not very good. I just think that it's important as a communication tool. And it's interesting just being around students or other people who are new to lighting, that I think a lot of people don't realize how important being able to communicate your ideas graphically to others can be. How do you find that you use your skill as part of your lighting design practice?
Yes, I find it the same way as you. So I think sketching is kind of communication. It's an easiest way to convey the idea, because sometimes, because I'm not an English native speaker, so sometimes it's hard to explain a lot of things in words. So I use my sketching skill to communicate, and I think it's easy and efficient as well.
Mm. Did I notice, do you also speak German?
Yes, a little bit.
What languages do you speak, Chayot?
Uh, Actually, I like learning languages, especially European, because as a kid, I really wanted to go to to Germany to work there. And I also studied German when I was in Bangkok. And also after that, even when I was in Dubai, I continued my study as well. And I have some friends in Germany, so I have a certain way to practice.
That's handy. I think that's what's so wonderful about being part of a small community like Lighting Too, is that we get to meet people and make connections all around the world. You say that you've done quite a bit of traveling. Where are some of the places you've traveled to?
Yeah, actually, I'm fascinated by the Middle East, uh, especially in Dubai, because when I was there, I find that it's a new place for me. Like I have never been to desert because it doesn't exist in Thailand, and yeah, it's the first time riding on a camel as well, and it's fun actually. And I had a chance to go to, for example, Jordan and Bahrain as well. And I think the most interesting place that I have been to was Madagascar.
Really?
Yeah,
Why is it interesting?
it's interesting because there are a lot of endemic plants and animals that I cannot find anywhere else.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah.
And like the peacock behind your head that we commented on at first. Um, uh, I, I think it's pretty neat to see things that we're not familiar with. Definitely the desert has a special quality of light associated with it.
Yeah.
I almost sort of see a little bit of the moves of the desert in some of the projects that it looks like you've worked on. Maybe it's just the curvature of the plaster or some other gestures. Um, do you feel like some of these things inspire your work, or what has inspired you?
Yeah, I think traveling to different environments also inspired me. And also, I think all the people that I met along the way, all the lighting designers or the architects or interior designers, all of them also my inspirations as well.
Mhm.
So I hope that someday I can meet you in person as well.
Yeah, yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts for people who are new to lighting? Any suggestions for ways that they can um, develop their eye, their skill? Any tips?
I think, in my opinion, is something that I would like to advise my younger self as well is to experience more and step out of the safe zone to do something new, something you have never done before, or maybe travel to a new place, or yeah. So I think that's very important to develop your perspective and maybe improve your skill, how you envision your environment as well. So actually, I'm interested to learn from you as well. Do you have any suggestion for young lighting designers?
Oh, no, I don't have any suggestions. That was a question for you. No, I'm just joking.
Okay.
Um, um, I I actually I think I maybe suggested this a little bit, but carry a light meter around. Check out how much light, because I feel like sometimes it's so abstract what we do, and it's so easy to overlight things. It's actually hard. It's harder to light things just right unless you have a dimming system and unless you can take the time to calculate it and you know exactly what you're going after, but it's all such a gamble because reflectance values are slightly different than what you think you've calculated. And lighting isn't really about the numbers so much, but it's about paying attention to what you experience and realizing then that 10-foot candles in one environment seems really bright, whereas in another different environment, 10-foot candles is actually quite dim. So starting to get familiar with just looking at light and measuring it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's important to experience what have been done before and how you can improve it or maybe implement
Mm-hmm.
good points from the existing ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also have a habit to carry a lux meter whenever I go to the sites and or maybe I go to a shopping mall. Maybe it's a bit weird to carry the lux meter around, but yeah, it's the only way we can learn.
Yeah. Well, and photographs, taking photographs.
Yeah, because sometimes photographs also deceives us in terms
Mhm.
of the maybe it can mislead our perception, so it cannot be totally believed.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the photographs of your projects are spectacular. So good. I assume that your firm has a professional photographer who does the work, or do you buy the photographs from the architects, or where do you get your photography?
Yeah, I think there are two cases. So, for example, if the project is in China, we usually got the photograph from the photographer from the client side. But if it's a local project, we also have our marketing communication teams with we also have an in-house photographer which is very skillful. So basically he always help us to take the photographs. So that's the reason why they are so amazing. Yeah.
Well, they're spectacular. Yeah. I think we can open it up to some questions if anybody has any questions for Chayot. Yali or Nick, I don't know if you want to join us for a little bit here too.
Yeah, I don't know if I am missing it. Do you see any questions? I don't know if mine's working.
Not sure. Nope, I'm not.
Nothing.
I am personally curious, Shayat. I'm very fascinated by the sort of different cultural differences when it comes to lighting. So I don't know if there's any differences that you noticed between where you were in Dubai and where you are now in Singapore that you can talk about.
Yes. Actually, I think it's totally different. So the first thing is the culture. So I think the culture has a lot of impact on the design. For example, in Dubai, they are very unique with their, for example, they have like Islamic pattern. So they implemented that on the facade usually. And a lot of projects there, they also use an architectural element called mashrabia, which is like a perforated screen. So a lot of time we are playing with that by either put the backlighting behind it in order to emphasize on the silhouette pattern. And sometimes we also light it from the front as well. So another thing is I think the climate also makes difference because, for example, in Dubai, there are a lot of sandstorms and the climate there is extremely hot. So we had to be careful about the selection of the light fixture. While I think in Singapore here is pretty much similar to Thailand. So yeah, I would say the geographical location also takes a very like a role to differentiate the design.
Yeah. Another question has come in. Where do you find inspiration in the real world?
Uh, I think most of the time by traveling or going out. So I mean, during the pandemic, I cannot travel a lot, but because just now I'm in another country that is not my hometown. So I take this opportunity to go out to see what happened out there. Sometimes I try to join and attend like art workshops or something like that to keep myself inspired.
That's good.
Chayot, maybe a question for me. So have you practiced as a lighting designer in Bangkok or not
Yes,
yet?
yes, I have. So I practiced lighting designer in Bangkok after I moved on from being an architect, and I stayed there for almost 4 years.
Oh, right. Okay.
So
So
actually
yeah, continue. It's okay.
yeah, actually that office was the first place where I practiced lighting design, and I consider it as my first lighting design school as well.
Yeah, it's actually pretty common, I think, to essentially continue your education at the first few well, we all continue our education wherever we work, but especially the first places we work after we get out of school, they're so informative. It's like your mind is totally blown to the idea that, oh, you have to do things a certain way. It's not just concept.
Yeah, I think we can learn anytime and anywhere, even though we have already graduated. So every moment is learning for me.
Do you recall the first time you realized that lighting was the career you wanted to commit to?
Yes, I remember that. So that was the moment when I was working in the office as an architect. I had a project which was a bus shelter, which integrated an escalator to the upper story of the building. And actually, the design was quite interesting. We designed the shelter in the way that it looks like a sculpture, to reminiscent to an iceberg inside a space.
Wow.
So yeah, I think the concept for the architecture was interesting, but I had a struggle because that time I didn't have any knowledge about lighting design. So I had zero idea how to light that piece of sculpture. So it was the first moment that I was aware of how lighting design is important and how it can be integrated into the architectural design as well.
I know you mentioned lighting a sculpture earlier. Have you been able to do a lot of sort of three-dimensional art lightings in general? Do you like that kind of thing?
Yes, I think recently we had worked on a hotel project which has a very interesting facade. So the facade was like, it was composed of a lot of linear elements that are binding together to form like a shape of a diamond. So yeah, what we did was we we didn't manage to highlight the whole facade, but we tried to use light fixture with narrow spot just to highlight the important angles of the facade. So actually, I think was it was another interesting experience to work on.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. Well, the idea of, you were saying earlier, texture or being able to see through a screening element, that's sort of like what a facade does too. Being able to integrate lighting to be able to reveal certain moments can be really spectacular, really rich. Yeah. Well, I think we've had a lovely chat today, and I do hope we get to meet up in person sometime. Maybe Enlighten Asia someday. I'd love to go.
Or Palm Springs? I don't know.
Palm Springs. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, CJ, Chayot, and Nick, for the wonderful discussions and insights. Yeah. So be sure to join us again for the Designer by Designer on 9th of June, when Chayot will be interviewing Maida Hot, Associate IALD from the UK. Registration to join us on Zoom will open soon. And of course, you can always join us on Facebook Live and rewatch any of the Designer by Designer interviews and all of IALD's video content on the IALD YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors and today's audience for watching. Stay tuned and see you next time.